Catholics are under attack, and as an atheist, and I suppose you as an atheist as well, not
And Protestant.
well,
I'm an atheist, but culturally I'm Protestant.
radio, but not usually on my radar to talk about Catholics, but they just are under attack, it seems, in a way that is unbelievable. So if we have this first one up here, so French Catholics are often targets of Islam's terror, as reported by the Sunday Times, and the quotes in here being, the suggestion that the killing of Sir David Ames could have been linked to his Catholic faith is a reminder, in France, a number of priests and worshippers have been targeted in recent years. Because, of course, this ties in with the murder there, that, well, he was a Catholic, killed in his church, operating his surgery as an MP. Why is that not being talked about?
Well, and more importantly, do you think that the Muslim jihadi who killed him was unaware of this?
Takes no stock in that.
Exactly. The way that the jihadis see the world is primarily, in fact, almost exclusively through a sort of monomaniacal religious lens. You are either Orthodox, Sunni, or you are evil heretic.
Yes.
And so this is the way they view the world. And if we don't understand that and articulate that, then we won't understand what's happening.
So continuing with this article, the attacks began with an 85-year-old priest being murdered by two Islamists in his church in the suburb of Rouen in northern France in July 2016. Last October, 3 people were killed in Nice when Bahrim Assouassi, a 21-year-old Tunisian who had recently arrived in Europe, went on a knife rampage at the city's Notre Dame Basilica, shouting Allahu Akbar. He beheaded a woman and stabbed 2 people to death before he was shot and seriously injured by police. Assouassi, who is charged with murder, appeared to have been inspired by the beheading barely 2 weeks earlier of Samuel Paty, a secondary school teacher who was killed by an 18-year-old Chechen. In August, Olivier Marie, 60, a priest in Monta-sur-Cevennes in western France, was killed by Emmanuel Abasinia, a Rwandan asylum seeker who had confessed to having been responsible for the fire that raged Nate's Cathedral in July 2020. And as you can see, there's a big long list there of attacks specifically against Catholics, because it being France, and also tying in with the attack against David Ames, being a Catholic in his church. And this is a jihad. This is an accurate description of what is taking place.
Yes.
Which is that there is a mass movement of Islamists throughout Europe over the last, say 20 years at least. Last 2 decades being particularly large for those migrations.
Yep.
And they have resulted in the effective jihad of literally just murdering people because they're heretics. If this is something you cannot deal with...
And not just they're heretics, they're a rival religion that's being attacked. That's what's happening. You know, God, I'm loath as I am to defend a Catholic, but this is happening to them.
Yeah, and needs to be pointed out.
Yeah.
So this isn't the only list of attacks as well. I just looked at the list of incidents in France and found this one as well, because of course. So this was an elderly man standing outside the church, and he had his throat slit with a knife by an assailant who just turned up and then ran away, so they never managed to catch the guy. He was just standing there, just hanging out.
Random act of stochastic terrorism.
Yeah. Thankfully, he survived that.
Oh, good.
So, miracle. But anyway, so it's not also just the fact that there are Islamists throughout France just murdering people for being at churches or being priests or beheading priests and so on and so forth.
And various others.
Yes, they are also destroying the churches themselves. So this is an article called Why France is Losing One Religious Building Every 2 Weeks. They say in here, that is the conclusion of Edward de Lamaze, president of the Observatory of Religious Heritage in Paris. Lamaze told CNA in an interview that in addition to one religious building disappearing every 2 weeks by demolition, transformation, destruction by fire, or collapse, 2/3 of fires in religious buildings are due to arson. 2/3 of all the fires are people turning up and setting fire to the church.
Just people.
Just people.
Why would the French want to burn down their own churches?
I don't know, just walking in with their baguettes, their berets, the little striped shirts they presumably wear, wearing garlic.
Yeah.
And they just walk in and be like, oh, sacre bleu, a church.
Yeah.
You know, for the revolution or something.
Yeah.
Not happening. We all know that's not what's happening. Anyway. So also the fact they're losing one every 2 weeks. He says, quote, although Catholic monuments are still ahead, one mosque is erected every 15 days in France, while one Christian building is destroyed at the same pace, Lamaze said. It creates a tipping point on the territory that should be taken into account. What he means is, of course, that we are seeing a long-running attack on Christianity, and the reverse taking place, that these baguette-wearing Frenchmen who are burning down their own churches, I'm sure, are not walking into the local mosque. and burning
Weird.
that down.
Weird that they're not just not burning local mosques; they're erecting new mosques.
Every 15 days, new one is set up, and, well, mathematics is mathematics. One day will come,
Numbers add up.
yes,
Yeah.
in which the churches dip below the number of mosques. Who knows when? Sure, you can run the projection. So Lamazé believes that on average, more than 2 Christian monuments are targeted every day. 2/3 of these incidents concern theft, while the remaining third involve desecration. And of course, the point being, imagine if this was taking place at the mosques of France,
Sure, but I mean, why would someone want to desecrate a church?
because they hate Christianity
Yes.
and want it removed from the earth.
And why would you hate Christianity? Well, you'd have to have some sort of religious perspective of your own. So it's either Hitchens-inspired new atheists who are going into these churches and burning them and desecrating them and murdering priests and whatnot, or it's another rival faith.
Could be the return of the Soviets. I'm sure there's a massive
be.
resurgence of Soviet sympathizers in France.
Radical atheists,
Yes,
again.
you're just burning down cathedrals left, right, and center. Or it could be the migration we've seen over the last 20 years, taking its course. He continues in here, 877 attacks on Catholic places of worship are recorded across the country in 2018 alone. Quote, these figures have increased 5-fold in only 10 years, Lamazé said, noting that 129 churches were vandalized in 2008.
There was one in Britain recently, wasn't there? There was a photo of a guy trying to leverage off the cross from the top of a church.
I think I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a few months ago.
Sure, he's as British as anyone else.
Well, I mean, he was obviously very British.
Yes. Presumably had a lovely British name.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that mentions that's in 2018. In 2019, the figures, of course, get worse because, well, they never get better, do they?
No.
And in here, we have the statistics. There is no official data for the number of Catholic churches set on fire. However, according to the French Ministry of the Interior, there were 1,063 incidents of anti-Christian acts in 2019, that being up from the 877 that chap just quoted.
Yeah.
So within 1 year, it just bumps up yet again. Most of the 32 recorded fires in 2018 were also concluded in 2019 to be acts of arson. So they were able to conclude that, yes, the majority of the fires just turning up in churches at random are not a nun spilling, some of the candles.
Yeah.
No, it's people walking in and setting fire to them. In 2019, the year began with an arson in the Alliance and Grenoble churches, as well as a fire in Laval Cathedral in Tarn. Only thanks to the speedy intervention by firefighters did the Saint Sulpice Church in Paris manage to survive. The Notre Dame Cathedral wasn't so lucky, they write here.
The mystery of what happened to Notre Dame.
Who knows? So if we get the next one up.
Paris's most famous, France's most famous cathedral.
Yeah, you have the headline here. 1 year after the tragic Notre Dame fire that caused the devastating blaze, remains shrouded in mystery.
Weird how they knew it was faulty electrics or something while the cathedral was still on fire.
Wasn't that reporting at the time?
Yeah.
So some guy standing outside whilst it's burning. Like,
Yes.
yeah, it was the electrics.
Yeah. How do you know? Yeah, exactly. How could you know?
And they didn't. And it's still shrouded in mystery, as this article goes into.
But I mean, put in the context of literally thousands of arsons in churches across France, sure, there's nothing to worry about. Nothing to be
thousands of
suspicious.
attacks
Well,
in any
yeah,
given
okay.
year.
Sure, yeah, but then you
Over
stress that
20
over
years?
Yeah, over 20 years, there's going to be literally thousands of churches that have been set on fire deliberately. But I'm sure Notre Dame was just an accident.
And dozens of people being murdered or
Yeah.
attempted to be murdered. Yeah. There's also one other story in here that I found really weird. So we'll go into it. So we got the next one up. So this is another attack of the Christian church. And this one's in French. So I hit translate and we got what we got. So Nimes, the Notre Dame des Enfants church was vandalized. They broke a tablement and
They broke the tabernacle.
tabernacle. Sorry, not Christians. I'm familiar with these things. And smeared excrement on the walls.
So they desecrated it.
I mean, what kind of lunatic do you have to be to start smearing your excrement across the walls
But they,
of the church?
they smeared it in the shape of a cross
Yes.
as well.
Which, I mean, these are the people we're dealing with. I mean, they're also beheading 60-year-old men randomly.
Well, I mean,
So
why would the new atheists do this?
I just can't.
Like, why would they go in and desecrate a church and smear crap on the walls?
Maybe it's German migrants who are just
Could well
coming
be.
over with their Biersteins.
But the point is, again, it's an attack on Christianity. It's the dignity of Christianity that is being attacked here.
Yes.
That's what's being attacked.
And of course, this is not unique to France either. This is also going on in Canada, although for different reasons. So this is not because of the
Yeah.
mass migration from North Africa, from places that are not at war. Just want to make
Yeah.
that point. Instead, this is because of people who are upset about what's happening in Canada. So if we get the next one up, this is the Wall Street Journal reporting about this. The burning of Canada's churches.
Canada.
Dozens have gone up in flames, and the Prime Minister's response is tepid. So they say in here, it has been a difficult summer for Canada's Christians. Over 5 days in late June, 4 Catholic churches and an Anglican church were burnt to the ground. The first churches were set ablaze or vandalized to begin a summer of such destruction. Suspicious fires then broke out across the country. In all, at least 56 churches have been set aflame or vandalized, according to the True North Centre, which is mapping the attacks on these churches. 56.
Sorry, I'm sniffing because I haven't got tissue on me.
Your 56 churches
Yeah.
just within Canada. I mean, we had 36 in 1 year over in France, but even worse in Canada. So if we can get the next one up, they mentioned there is a map, and if we scroll down this, you can see that's been updated to 68 churches now that have been attacked. And there's the map. I mean,
if this was mosques, or synagogues,
that's the question that keeps coming to mind.
God.
There's just 68 synagogues in Canada that have just been set alight,
and
people
no one
vandalizing.
cares.
Just not a story. The rising anti-Semitism in Canada from God knows where. No, instead
Rising
it is
Islamophobia across France. There's all these mosques are being burned down. No, but it's Christian, so it's just fine.
just all the imams keep getting beheaded.
Yeah.
Just, there's about 12 of them or so far that's happened.
No one
in the
will care.
recent years.
No one will
Just
care.
Part
Just
and
like-
parcel.
yep.
And instead, the response when it's Christians is, it's part and parcel of life,
It's just what happens.
as we engage in the future.
Mm.
Yeah. So if we go back to the article, there is some more quoting in here, which again makes that point very starkly. When Mr. Trudeau finally weighed in, he offered a tepid response that condemned a vague rise in intolerance and racism and hatred we're seeing across the country.
What?
Name it.
Yeah.
Which hatred?
Yeah.
Which intolerance? Which community is under attack, Mr. Trudeau? He didn't say. He continued to say, although he said unacceptable vandalism and arson would not fix the intergenerational grief, the Prime Minister could have learned from Alberta Premier Jason Kennedy. The provincial leader called the attacks what they were, an apparent hate crime targeting the Catholic community.
I'm surprised the Wall Street Journal would say this.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, it's in the opinion section, so
Sure, but still.
surprised they accepted it.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is, of course, all in the context of the unmarked graves being found from the several, I can't remember the name of the schools, but they were predominantly Catholic run, is my understanding.
Yes, yeah.
So in response, you have a bunch of people who have decided that I'm going to represent the indigenous community, self-appointed, not voted for. No, not actually any standing there, just I
Yeah.
believe I am, and therefore going to go out and destroy these Catholic churches, as if that makes any kind of sense. Therefore, destroyed this property, harms this person.
Yeah.
That fixes the horror of 100 years ago, does it? Right.
I guess
Okay.
it does now.
Yeah. So they continue earlier in June when a Muslim family was run down in London, Ontario, killing 4 people. Mr. Trudeau did not hesitate to condemn the attack. He sternly warned that Islamophobia has no place in any of our communities, while reassuring the Muslim community that, quote, that we stand with you.
But it's okay to have hate crimes targeting the Catholic community, and Trudeau's just like, well, all crime's bad, isn't it?
It inspires nothing in him.
No.
He does not respond. Anyway, many Christians are wondering why the Prime Minister does not speak as forcefully about violence directed against Christians. Does he stand with us too, the person writes.
And the answer's no. By
Yeah,
the way,
demonstrably.
if it just revealed preferences through his actions, he doesn't stand at your side when you're under attack, but he does when Muslims are under attack.
I like how this is also is in the wider context here. There's been a long conversation. I remember PragerU actually did a very good video on this, in which they showed that the exodus of Jews from the Middle East, who all ends up having to flee to Israel or Europe, and then you have the massive exodus of Christians from the Middle East who are having to flee out of there. Mostly
That
went to
Trump
Europe.
wanted to take as refugees.
Yes, and now when they get to the Christian world, Christendom, as it used to be called,
Yeah.
they're under attack just as much.
Yeah.
Amazing. So
We should have got a few of these up, actually, because there are a bunch of them who are saying, well, look, why has this been allowed to follow me here? I came to the Christian world because I wanted to escape Islamic terror attacks.
yeah. Also, where are they going to flee to next?
That's a great question, isn't it?
There's only one homeland left for such people,
Hmm.
Christendom. And if Christendom no longer exists, well, then they don't have one.
Well, it's going to be South America, if not Europe and North America, isn't
I
it?
suppose so. But, I'm saying, well, probably actually West Africa.
Well, yeah,
Anyway, so also she continues in here. The great irony is that many of the churches set ablaze were on Indigenous lands serving Indigenous people. Carrie Allenson, a former residential school student, is a congregant at the destroyed St. Anne in British Columbia. Quote, the church meant so much to us, especially our ancestors, she told the Pennantecon Western News. I think of all our ancestors that helped build St. Anne, looking over us and watching all the hard work of their place they cherished being burnt to the ground. I mean, again, I just, half of the indigenous people are Catholics, the Indians here, and then the response being, well, I'll just burn down the church and that'll get back at the white colonizers.
And they're like, yeah, but that's our church.
You dum-dum.
It's been our church for hundreds of years.
It reminds me of the BLM riots.
Yeah.
They just burned down all the black neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Yeah. We defeated white supremacy today, boys.
Yeah, checkmate.
God.
Racist.
Continues, approximately half of the indigenous Canadians are Christian. More indigenous people claim Christian religious affiliation than native spirituality, according to Statistics Canada. A group of indigenous Christians held a press conference on July 5th to condemn the violence. Again, as the people who are supposedly being stood up for here, having their stuff burnt down, and then having to tell the lunatics, get lost. I mean, in both cases, it's
but they're not radicals. They're people who are connected to this thing, and so they actually care about it. So the people who are like celebrating this or just ignorant of it are totally disconnected from it. They don't care at all.
No, not the church, not the place, nor do they ever visit the place. Quote, burning down churches is not in solidarity with us indigenous people, said Jen Ali Riley, a Pentecostal minister. Some residential school survivors have remained Catholic and now have lost their place of worship and comfort. So again, I mean, not a Catholic, not a Christian, but I can't get over the situation in which you see, particularly in France, being awful. I mean, the situation there being one that comes
obviously a jihadi movement in France that's attacking Catholicism,
but one that comes definitely from without
yes,
to within the country with the blessing of the government's immigration policies,
yes,
that has led to terror,
yes,
endlessly.
And this has happened in Italy as well, but we're just focusing on
France is the particularly one that suffered the most.
But Italy's having a lot of these problems as well.
Yes,
but
then you also have Canada as well, which is at least, let's say, a homegrown kind of extremism against Catholics, so it's more manageable. But the situation there, again, just being so absurdist. And, tough time for Catholics. If you enjoyed that segment from the podcast The Lotus Eaters, you can watch the full thing at 1 p.m. every weekday at lotuseaters.com, or you can sign up to get access to all the premium content we have on the site.
Yeah, we've got loads of really good stuff. Every week we have a Contemplations and Epochs episode that goes up, and in the Contemplations we talk about just interesting things, and the Epochs episodes are probably my favourite because I love talking about history. This latest one is we're doing a bit of a series on the 100 Years' War and why England kept winning. And we've not finished it yet, and you're going to really enjoy the end of that one. But we've also got other excellent episodes that we do, like the book club. The most recent one was Shooting an Elephant by George Orwell. This was about his time in Burma as a colonial officer, and when he was tasked with the shooting of a rampaging elephant. And it's really, really interesting what the circumstance of the thing was. But we also have lots of other content, such as premium articles, which have audio tracks on them for our silver and gold subscribers. And we do premium podcasts about things that we don't really feel that we can put on YouTube or have done a particularly large amount of research into. And so it's worth keeping them slightly more private. And we also do lots of very interesting interviews, such as this one with comedian Steve Hughes, which was really fascinating because I didn't expect him to be a philosopher. But anyway. Yeah.
Also, the last thing to mention is the live event content we have. So we occasionally, when we get around to it, doing our live events, and the videos from them are on the website as premium, of course, because people came to see and paid. So go and check that out. This is on the worst of critical race theory.
Yes.
And I do mean the worst.
It's unconscionable.
Yeah. So if you'd like access to all that premium content, go to lotuseaters.com and subscribe. Thank you and goodbye.